Howdy, folks. Welcome to the June edition of Cattle Trails Showcase. I'm Ron Wilson, Poet Laureate. Mighty glad to be with you. Today, we're zooming along the Chisholm Trail to the #1 outdoor museum in the state of Texas, which offers that and much, much more. But first, we have a related question to answer in the chat if you choose. We're talking about cattle drives on the Chisholm Trail. When the cattle drives took place, the riders took various positions around the herd. In other words, they weren't just randomly arranged around the herd. What was the name of the position of the cowboy riding at the front of the herd? So the cowboy riding at the front of the herd was said to be riding what?
Well, I better.
Here, I'm gonna put myself on mute here because we're getting ready to start this.
So the cowboy riding in the position at the front of the herd was said to be riding what? If you want to answer in the chat, we'd encourage you to do so. The purpose of the Cattle Trails Showcase is to continually highlight the communities, historical elements, museums, and other attractions along the Chisholm and the Western Trail. Showcase is brought to you by the International Chisholm Trail Association, of which Dennis Katzenmeyer is president, Michael Brower is vice president, Nancy Lawrence is secretary, and Mary Lou Rivers is treasurer. And speaking of Mary Lou, that rambunctious redhead is having a birthday today. So we send happy birthday wishes to Mary Lou. I'll spare you all from me trying to sing. Lonnie Steben is our showcase chair. We appreciate him doing this. And we'll check the chat. And yes, Michael Brower and Jeff Davidson know that rider in front was riding point. So today we will visit another Chisholm Trail Museum. This one has a remarkable outdoor presence in addition to its other features. On-site museum director Carrie Reynolds will tell us about the museum, and she has a special guest with her. Carrie is a Texas rancher. She's in the National Cowgirl Hall of Fame and a former world champion barrel racer who's taught clinics across the nation. So we'll ask her and her guest to tell us about the Chisholm Trail Outdoor Museum in Cleburne, Texas. So Carrie, if you would share your screen and tell us about the Chisholm Trail Outdoor Museum.
Okay, thanks so much. All right, we had a little technical difficulty this morning, so I'm going to try it again. This one? Okay. And hopefully we're on our logo. Can y'all see my logo of our logo of the, okay.
Yes, looks great.
Excellent. So this is the world famous Chisholm Trail Outdoor Museum in Cleburne, Texas. I have with us today also Mr. David Murdoch, and he is sitting behind us. He is the CEO here. He wears a lot of hats, but because of him, this museum exists. So we're going to get more involved in that, but a little about myself. So I am a retired professional barrel racer. I'm a grandmother. I have 3 beautiful grandkids, and I am the on-site director here. I've been here going on 5 years. So I have a ranch still down south outside of Meridian, Texas, and it's been in our family going over 120 years now. And so I've gotten stories passed down to me and artifacts and things from the Chisholm Trail, and we can go over all of that later. It was an Indian campsite. Purdue University and Baylor University confirmed all of that, and the artifacts that we have. We have the old wagon ruts going through the natural springs and this and that, but it's a straight shot from my old ranch up to here to the museum. So I guess my love of history and the Chisholm Trail and my background and horses and all that just kind of, it fits together. So as Ron said, we are ranked #1 for the state of Texas tourism. Even though we have a lot of indoor buildings, we're ranked #1 outdoor open air museum, which came really important during COVID. You know, instead of everybody staying in their house and in sheltered in place, they got outside where there was fresh air. And so we had our visitors picked up tremendously during that time. Let's see if we can get to this next slideshow. And yep, that was me back in the day. We do a lot of events out here. Are you guys able to see these screens?
Yes.
Okay. We'll just bypass me. We have, everybody knows all about the different trails, the cattle trails that came through Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, all the way up. And we're really putting emphasis on the Chisholm Trail. That's another show, but we're going to talk about our museum. But we had a lot of maps that came into play that just pinpoints it coming right through the center of the museum here. We're about 35 minutes south of Fort Worth. We sit directly on Highway 67. There's Jesse Chisholm. And it's the beginning of the hill country. So everybody coming out of the Metroplex, Dallas, Fort Worth, all over Texas, wanting to head down south, they're going to go right past. If they're wanting the hill country, the beautiful scenery, they're going to go right past the museum. And we have a lot of historic photos. It looks like some of these might be out of whack now. But we have a silhouette of the cattle drive that went through. It's a life-size silhouette made from steel. Bobby Kerr, a famous iron worker here, steel worker here in Texas. And each cow and silhouette has brands on them of local ranches. What you're seeing in the pictures is a cemetery. So this portion of the museum was 80 acres. It was started by 29 families that came up on the trail, and they decided to call it Wardville. So 29 families. We do have a homestead, but when we got the land over 20 years ago and started clearing it, we found graves. And the graves in the pictures right here is William and Permelia O'Neill. And they were one of the 29 families. We didn't even know that their graves were here, but when we started clearing the land, we found many graves, several graves. But William O'Neill and his brother built the courthouse, and there's going to be pictures, I hope, of it in this slideshow. They were earlier this morning, so we'll see what happens. But we found their graves and then some unmarked graves also. Philip Nolan is a pretty notable person here. We have his headstone also. We had to have it moved over here because where he was actually killed down the road, people were desecrating his headstone. So it was not protected. So we got it here at the museum, and people love to come by and see his headstone. There's the silhouette I was talking about. So this is kind of a marker per se. The highway is in the background. So there's no denying where the Chisholm Trail Museum is, because when you see the silhouettes and they're life size, you'll know that's the Chisholm Trail Museum. So we're real lucky to have those. And there's some of the brands on the horses and the longhorns. So when you come into the front gate of the museum, there's signs everywhere, but the one that I like is saying warning. It just kind of sets the mood for people coming onto the museum grounds. It says you're stepping back into the 1800s. The cows are real, the cannons are real, and the people are real. So we have people that dress up period correct. Our Terry's Texas Rangers, they do fire real cannons. And we get a lot of complaints because everybody thinks that we're under a terrorist attack. So I just love this little sign right here. The first building, that's some of our signs, and Terry's Texas Rangers next to our big sign on the left. So want to say real quick, we are a nonprofit museum. How we get things done, everything is donated to us, but we get sponsors. It takes money, as y'all know, to have upkeep and keep the museum going. So we've been real blessed to have some great sponsors. First building on your right, you're greeted by a life-size buffalo. that stands right outside of the Big Bear Native American Museum, first stone building on your right. And that is kind of what started all. There's a picture of our CEO, David Murdoch. He's standing in Big Bear Indian Museum. This is David here behind. Are you wearing the same clothes as that picture? But that museum was put together with 4 archaeologists, and one is standing right there in that picture. That was a TV show being filmed that day. But he is one of the leading archaeologists in the United States, and he's our museum curator. He actually lives here in Cleburne, so we are so excited to have him here. But that museum is incredible. This next picture, so we are a stopping point for a lot of TV shows, movies. The people in this picture here, the TV show The Amazing Race, that was we were a stopping point for that show as a clue. So, you know, when they're racing across America getting clues. So they were here this last year, and that was pretty interesting. They had to find Quanah Parker's moccasins, and they didn't have a clue what they were looking for. But when they left out of here, they were sure schooled on some history, you know, so that was exciting. Next to that, and some teepees, we have a working blacksmith shop. We have 3 working blacksmiths that are forging steel and iron, and they have a showroom. We also do blacksmith classes out here. So kids love to come see how hooks are made, shoes, everything else. So that's our working blacksmith shop. Right next to that, I don't know anywhere else in the country that you can rent a horse and ride on the historic Chisholm Trail. So every Saturday we offer horseback riding, and the horseback riding guides tell you about what drovers carried in their saddlebags, some of the things that they went through on the Chisholm Trail, good, bad, and ugly. And so people from other countries, we get people from all around the world, also the United States, and they love the stories of, you know, what some of these cowboys went through and cowgirls, some of the hardships and great times. So up the hill, we have a big stagecoach, and this sits right outside of my office. We get a lot of school groups. We get a lot of travelers. The stagecoach, everybody loves because it's a big photo op. They can get up in the stagecoach. That came to us from Hollywood. That was in a lot of Westerns. It was in John Wayne's movies and other notables. But one thing everybody asks is, gosh, that thing is big. And I'm like, well, it really wasn't that big back in the day. It was built for Hollywood, so it needed to look big on the movie screen. So outside of my office and the stagecoach station is the jail of Wardville and the sheriff's office. And so everybody loves to go to the jail, believe it or not. They love to see what an old jail looked like back in the West. The bars and locks are real. The wood, if you can see the ceiling in there and the walls, that came out of an old hotel downtown Cleburne. They restored it. That hotel used to be a brothel and a saloon. We use that wood for the schoolhouse also, but you can't tell kids that are sitting at a desk and walking on the floor. That came from an old saloon and brothel. So the wood is real. It came from that time period, but the bars and locks, that was the original jail of Wardville here back in 1854. So we have mannequins in the jail cells, and it scares everybody to death because they think that these are real people laying there. Outside of the jail, we have an old casket, and people, it's just a photo prop, but people like to see the shape of a casket. And do what?
It's a toe pincher.
Toe pincher. The guy actually, if you look at him real close, that's in the casket, you will probably have seen him in Yellowstone in 1883. We're home to the Legends of Texas, the gunfighter group out of Fort Worth in the stockyards. They've been in lots of movies, and this is their home base. So they're here for every event that we put on. If they're not filming, they send others, but we always have real gunslingers and whatnot. Next to the sheriff's office, we have a trading post in honor of William and Permelia O'Neill that you saw in the cemetery, their graves. They had the only trading post in this area. And so in honor of them, we just have a little souvenir shop, and we make homemade jams, jellies, pickles, souvenirs, Chisholm Trail relics, things like that. And right next to there's our crown beauty, I guess you could say. That is the oldest log courthouse in the state of Texas. That has a historical marker on it right there to the left of the picture, the screen, from this Austin. The logs were hand cut by William O'Neill and his brother and floated down the river, and it was built in here in Johnson County, and it's been moved around the county a few times, but it rests proudly right here in its permanent home. And it still operates as a working courthouse. If you want to file documents or get married, we've done that. Anything in this little courthouse. And so the kids will pull up a carpet square, and our historian will tell you stories about the courthouse and everything back in 1854. This building we added the last 2 years. This is a world-class covered stage. We do a lot of concerts here. We do bluegrass concerts every month. Like I said, everything we have out here has been donated. There's a local hardware store called Rowlett's Hardware. They have 4 locations, and they came to us one day and said, how do we get involved? And a year later, we have the most incredible stage that we hold concerts. We just wrapped up a big bluegrass festival here. I don't know, we had maybe 10 or 11 different bands, musical groups that have performed on here. Headliner came in from Nashville, Tennessee, and it was phenomenal. So we're super excited about the stage. Right next to that is our one-room schoolhouse. What I tell visitors that come here, you've all seen Little House on the Prairie. Well, their schoolhouse in that resembles ours. And it's the neatest little old school. A lot of our buildings, most of it is all handicap accessible. You can see a ramp on the side there that gets you up in it. But what we've done, actual accredited school hours. Teachers have brought their kids out here, lots of homeschool groups and ISDs. The kids can't get over they don't have computers, but what we tell them, they used to use little slate chalkboards, and each of them get to write with chalk on a little slate chalkboard. And there again, the desks, part of the desks in the floor, that came out of the old brothel, but we don't tell the kids that. But lots of history, incredible schoolhouse. In fact, I'll tell you, when I took over and became the on-site director, there was no place to have a meeting with all of our volunteers. And so I scheduled a meeting one night here in the schoolhouse, and everybody sat at the desks, and it got dark. And I said, can somebody turn the lights on in here? There's no power, there's no lights. So we wrapped that meeting up and called it a day. This is the Shining Star. This is the Terry building. This is a very historic building out here. It is a stone, all stone building. Dog trot, you've seen those buildings. They were normally made out of wood. This is all stone. One side of it to the right, yes, there's bars on the windows. One side is the Civil War Museum, and it's home to the Terry's Texas Rangers. They have all their Civil War artifacts, guns, you name it, swords, everything, it's in there. Kids love seeing this, all the artifacts. Every weekend, the Terry's Texas Rangers are in full uniform, They do fire their black powder guns. Behind them is General Pat Cleburne, who our town is named after. So people don't know why the town is named Cleburne. Well, there we can take an opportunity to explain that. And it has all their guns, a lot of their guns. And at big festivals, they roll out the cannons. And we sit right across on a lake and we fire the cannons. And it's incredible. The other side of the building is dedicated to law enforcement. And that's David Murdoch. And he deputizes all the kiddos that come in there every weekend. He makes them take a pledge, an oath, and they have to hold their hand up. And they get a little sticker, a badge that, you know. But this building, David is also the chaplain at the sheriff's department. And right next to his office was a gentleman by the name of Bill Hardin. And he is, to this day, the oldest living law enforcement man ever in the history of law enforcement around the world. There is nobody that has been in law enforcement longer than Bill Hardin. He's 75 years wearing a badge.
Yeah, it turned 99 first of March.
And he still goes into the sheriff's department.
He still has an office at the sheriff's office.
Yeah, twice a week, once a week. And he works on unsolved cases, or
Yeah, sometimes, yes.
he's incredible. He was just out here the other day, and I'm telling you, he still has it going on. And so it's an honor to know him. When we unveiled this building, the TV crews were here from Dallas and Fort Worth. All the Texas Rangers were here. The story traveled around the world. And that next day, we were having phone calls from all over the United States. It made the front page of the London, England Times newspaper. TV shows have been filmed about him. So it's just a great building. There he is sitting there. That's David Murdoch. This is Bill Hardin. I don't know if you can see my cursor or not. And then there's another one of our board of directors to the left. So that's David Kirkley. There's a lot of artifacts in this law enforcement building. Lots of pictures, lots of guns. The gun right above their head, that's a very famous one by Lone Wolf Gonzalez. So when people come visit, I mean, we've even got stuff from Bonnie that's Bonnie and Clyde related. So all through time, Texas Rangers on horseback, just
I might inject that rifle that you were looking at
right there.
belonged to Lone Wolf Gonzalez. And on either side of the forestock, on either side of the barrel, it has 53 notches on it.
53. A lot of people don't know what that means, but that's just one gun, and that was kills. So
Yeah.
we have quite a collection of stuff in there. So there it is outside. We do sit on Lake Pat Cleburne, and we did add a bird watching deck back there. We get bird watchers from all around the world. Who would have thought bird watching? That's the #1 tourist dollar spent worldwide. It outdoes football, baseball, everything. And we get a lot of bird watchers. And out of the clear blue, I had the National Audubon Society and the National Wetlands bring me in as a guest speaker for their convention here in Texas, because you cannot imagine how many different migratory birds come to this lake. It's the perfect scenario for different birds. We also have an eagle's nest back here, and we have a full-time volunteer that is a photographer. And so he watches that nest and the babies like every day. He's really into that. So as I said, we do bluegrass concerts monthly. We started having them in the Star Pavilion, and we've done weddings in there. We've done corporate meetings. We quickly outgrew having concerts in the pavilion. It's a climate controlled, beautiful facility. All of it was donated. Historians, poets, just movies, shows have been filmed there. Beautiful. If you look up at the top, there's a couple relics that a buckboard, that right there, that red and green buckboard. And behind here, it's not in the picture, they belong to Roy Rogers. They were Roy Rogers, Dale Evans collection. I brought their daughters in and did an evening with Cheryl Rogers Barnett. I think maybe you guys might know her. And she got to speak and tell all about growing up in Hollywood. Up here on the wall, there's a big mount of a longhorn. His name was Chisholm, and that was David's pet. And so he's still involved out here. But we outgrew this building holding bluegrass concerts. And so we had to go to the stage, and that's why we built the stage. Every year we do Texas Independence Day celebration, and it's a full reenactment of the Alamo. And so the Legends of Texas, the reenactors come in and they do a full reenactment. We bring out a couple hundred chairs in the schools, bus the kids out here so they can actually see the battle and what took place. Miss Devin Dawson, she performed on, she's been out here numerous times. She's family to us. She is the voice in the Disney movie, Jessie, the yodeling singing cowgirl from Toy Story 2 and Toy Story, all of them. But she gets out there, does a phenomenal job. Kids love seeing the teepees and getting in them. We just wrapped up a powwow here in Texas, the largest powwow in Texas. Tribes, every tribe was represented. You just can't imagine. They came from all over the United States. And that was 2 years in the making, getting that powwow. The school buses come in, they drop the kiddos off, and they turn them loose on the museum, and kids love it. That it becomes real to them. It's, you know, they can read it in the books, but when they can actually see it, touch it, watch it, it becomes real. There's Festus. He travels around the country. He's been, if you didn't think Festus was still alive, boy, I'll tell you, he sounds like him. He looks like him. He acts just like him, and he is a great asset here. That was a band that came in from Nashville. That was Russell Moore and Third Time Out, the most decorated bluegrass Grammy Award winners in the history of bluegrass. They just performed here a couple months ago. So we have a big seating area down below, and we try to just kind of keep it real and let people really know we're still here. We got to keep history alive and well and keep it on the forefront, because if we don't, it's all going to be erased and no one will remember, you know, where we're at. That's the Civil War guys, Terry's Rangers, firing their black powder gun. And this Saturday, tomorrow, actually, we have a minor league baseball game coming up, and we go Wild West once a year, and we're bringing out the gunfighters, and it's going to be a real treat to watch that game. And we just go Wild West out there. These were just some visitors, different people playing on stage. There's the Legends of Texas again. So gunfighters, kids love watching gunfighters. Man, I'll tell you, with everything going on right now with wanting gun control, we're not stopping anything. We're going to keep doing it. So having the gunfights. And that is the Chisholm Trail Museum. We host probably 30 to 40,000 people a year. And David, would you like to say anything?
Well, you did a great job. There's not a whole lot left to say. It's, we've been here this is our 19th year. We have the largest silhouette cattle drive in the nation. We have the oldest log courthouse in Texas. The Terry building was moved. It was in Johnson County, but we moved it stone by stone over here and reassembled it. The people from Austin came down and said it was one of the very few that were made out of stone. Most of them are made out of wood. But it is a very unusual building. All of the things what we try to do when people come in is take them back in time. When you step into one of our buildings, you actually go back in time. And like in the schoolhouse, our schoolmaster, he's got some health problems right now, but we've had about 160 curriculum day school classes. The girls on one side, boys on the other side, blue black spellers, raised arithmetic, McGuffey readers, cursive writing. When we first started doing it, he would have them write a paragraph at the end of the day and say, what was your experience? Just give me a paragraph about your experience for the day. One little fourth grade boy said, this was funner than Christmas.
Yeah.
And the teachers get a kick out of it too. And they're amazed how he can control the classes and keep the kids, order and the discipline and so forth that's there. But they really learn a lot. But
And the school mom, we have school
yeah,
mom.
oh, yeah.
She does a great job.
yeah, everybody. But anyway, it's an experience. Like I said, we've been out here almost 20 years and just keeping it going. And we have, our situation is no different from anybody else. The way everything is, you can go up and down our main street here in town, and you've got help wanted signs everywhere. And so we're always looking for qualified docents and people to give tours and so forth.
I will tell you about Cleburne. Cleburne really has it all. I'll tell you, perfectly centrally located here in Texas. We have every major hotel. We have the big box stores and Walmart. We have an incredible little historic downtown Cleburne that has great antique shops to gourmet restaurant to old-fashioned root beer and soda shop. We have a coffee shop. We have everything that would be a great weekend, but we also have baseball. Besides baseball, I mean, these are big name players that come here that get traded up to the majors and whatnot, but baseball, and then we have theater. And so you could literally spend 3 or 4 days here and get a taste of everything. The Plaza Theater, they have the most incredible, you don't have to go to New York, y'all. You can come here and go to the Plaza Theater. Glen Rose is just right down the road. They've got the dinosaur tracks and a lot of stuff going on there. So, and like I said, 35 minutes out of Fort Worth. So a lot happening here in our little area, lots of history. So I think, do I need to get out of this slideshow now or?
You can get out if you want, or you can leave the logo up. Folks, let's have a big virtual round of applause here for Carrie and Mr. Murdoch and the Chisholm Trail Outdoor Museum. I'll pause and see if anyone wants to post a message in the chat or unmute and ask a question. I would just tell you, I think this was funner than Christmas, folks.
Ron, I would have a question for our hosts. Being located where you are in, near the Dallas-Fort Worth area, what representation of the Mexican and Hispanic vaqueros do you have at the museum?
All right, tackle that. Well, Frank, go ahead.
Yeah, Frank Running Water is on our board. He is Mescalero Apache, and as far as representing, but as far as the actual Mexicana, I don't know that we have something specific that you could put your hands on other than our teepees and so forth. And of course, they were part of the vaqueros and the original cowboy, and that is told, verbally. We have another building that's being planned when we get the funds that will actually be a Chisholm Trail indoor facility that will have a lot of that verbiage and so forth in it. But at the present time, there's not anything here specifically.
When we do our major events like Pioneer Days, Texas Independence, we do have people dressed up. They are part of every skit that we do, from Texas Independence to the ones in Pioneer Days. And we do about 5 majors a year, 5 major events.
We do have the gauchos have been here riding horses and so forth in some of our past events that, would tie into what you're talking about.
That's great. It sounds like you're moving in that direction, and that I
Yes,
think
sir.
that'll be great representation of that population. One other thing on the celebration of the Battle of the Alamo, do you have representation of Seguin's role and other Hispanics who died at the Alamo?
Actually, I can answer that. Yes, we do. When we do the Texas Independence, we bring in the leading authorities from the Alamo. And they speak in the building that I showed you, the pavilion. And they bring in all the boards, the big display boards, and talk. They go the whole, not just the Alamo, but they're in all the other towns.
It was a Mr. Rodriguez that came and spoke.
Rudy Rodriguez.
He's been here twice, but the first time he brought back and went all the way back to the 1700s, where the actual word or term Texas Ranger, the Ranger, came into effect because they were riding the range, guarding the cattle from the Indians. And so he went back into the 1700s with that. Very, very interesting.
That's great. Thank you for those answers.
Thank you.
Carrie, this is Lonnie. You might share your hours and the months that you're open. We haven't talked about that.
Well, I'll tell you, I'd love to be open 7 days a week because I'm here 7 days a week. But getting volunteers, especially when it's 106 degrees, is a tough one. But we right now are open every Saturday 10 to 5 and Sunday 1 to 5. But if there's a private tour group, a school group, whatever, we do open different days of the week for a private tour. We just hosted 2 days ago a big tour group out of Tennessee. They had their big tour bus and they came down for the authentic chuck wagon dinner and cowboy experience. So we do open different times for private events, but Saturday 10 to 5 and Sunday 1 to 5.
Thank you.
We
Also-
were down visiting our daughter, and just to drive along the highway and happen upon the sight of those silhouettes of the
Yeah.
great cattle drive along the Chisholm Trail was absolutely awesome. It was such a treat.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Those people that are represented in that silhouette, they were actually local people that we actually took their picture, their silhouette. Most of them, we put them on a horse and then we used their brand. If they didn't have a brand, we would use their initials. But some of the silhouettes, actually, we took the rancher with sitting on a horse and the whole thing. But those started back when we first started. That was one of our fundraisers, and it became pretty. We were doing Cowboy and Rider was going to be like $2,500, and the steers were going to be like $1,600. Well, we got 3 cowboys right off the bat, and I said, this isn't going to work. We're just going to have a bunch of cowboys here, so we had to change it up. And so in order to have a rider, you had to have 3 steers. So that's how we worked it out. So you had to have at least 3 steers that went with it. But that was one of our original fundraisers that we went along. But those are actually people's silhouettes that are represented on that cattle drive.
Did you have a question, Lonnie? Sorry, I interrupted.
No, I just wanted to thank Carrie and Mr. Murdoch. I know you guys, and from what you presented, you're very, very involved in this and takes a lot of time. And we really appreciate you taking the time this morning to
Thank
share with
you.
us. And it's another bucket list, that's for sure. So
Thank you.
We were on the Texas bucket list. In fact, Bill Harden, the gentleman that's 99 years old, they came out and did an episode with him out here on the bucket list. It went viral. We have people in every week that saw that bucket list show.
If you want to pull up Red Steagle or RFD TV, he filmed 3 episodes of his show somewhere west of Wall Street. That's a mouthful. But you can watch his shows that they filmed out here, and it was incredible. Loved having Red in the group here. You can pull that up, and RFD does come out here and film. We do photo shoots for Cinch jeans, Twisted X boots. The list just goes on and on. So.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you. Another round of applause for Carrie and Mr. Murdoch.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
We look forward to being to Cleburne and experiencing the museum.
So you have a standing invitation to come by. Just give us a call. We'll be glad to give you a tour.
Appreciate the Texas hospitality.
Ron, we might remind everybody this is recorded and will be available. You might tell your friends if you to watch this on YouTube if they missed it today.
Okay.
So
Awesome.
we'll be posting this and we'll be back for another Cattle Trails showcase next month. Lonnie, you want to say a word about who we might look for next month?
Well, we're back to Kansas in July, and believe it or not, I actually have August and September worked out too. So I'm outdoing myself, but Caldwell, we had a visit a year or so ago with Jill when they had their festival down there. But next month, Karen Sturm's actually going to give us a tour of the historic part of downtown, the old opera house, and then the museum, and tell us a little bit about the history and the colorful past they have, being a setting on the border. They call it the Border Queen, setting on the border of Oklahoma and Kansas.
So we'll look forward to that. It's the second Friday of each month, and so it will be Friday, July 8th at 10 a.m. and we look forward to seeing you then. For our board members, we do plan a board meeting immediately after this showcase ends. But to close our program today, this is Ron Wilson, Poet Laureate, saying thanks for taking time to join us in this place. And come on back next month for our Cattle Trails showcase. Happy trails, everybody.
Thanks again, you guys.
Thank you.